The bipartisan $118 billion border security and foreign aid package could be on track to fail in the U.S. Senate. A large number of Republicans came out against the legislation hours after it was unveiled. Speaker Mike Johnson said this package would be, quote, dead on arrival if it reaches the House. President Biden is putting the blame for this Republican opposition on former President Trump.
Now, all indications are this bill won't even move forward to the Senate floor. Why? A simple reason. Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump thinks it's bad for him politically. Therefore, he doesn't, even though it helps the country, he's not for it. He'd rather weaponize this issue than actually solve it. So Republicans have to decide, who do they serve? Donald Trump or the American people? Are they here to solve problems or just weaponize those problems for political purposes?
The CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now. Good to see you, Scott. Obviously we heard there from President Biden blaming Republicans in Congress and blaming the former president, but Republican senators are actually blaming their own leadership in terms of this bill and these negotiations. Let's take a quick listen to what some Republican senators said earlier today.
This is a plan Chuck Schumer is thrilled with, which is why Schumer says, I got 98 problems, but Mitch isn't one of them.
I think we can all agree that Senator Cruz is not a fan.
So what do you make of some Senate Republicans, in essence, throwing Leader McConnell under the bus for how these negotiations were handled?
I genuinely think this has surprised the authors of the bill, the speed with which Republicans have defected from this bill in the U.S. Senate. I think having the endorsement of Mitch McConnell, the unequivocal endorsement of Mitch McConnell earlier this month and in January on this bill, gave the authors some sense and some hope that he could bring along much of the Republican conference. And one after another, as this day began and continued into the afternoon, key Republicans were explicit in that they were defecting, didn't believe in the bill, didn't think it was the right way forward, and disavowed the legislation altogether. I asked James Lankford, the key negotiator for Senate Republicans, if he feels like he's been hung out to dry by his own party on this. And he says, I wouldn't characterize it that way, but all the opposition hasn't helped. And he's trying to keep this thing alive. But Nicole, you've heard it as well as anybody. All the synonyms that are circulating tonight here on Capitol Hill to describe this legislation as it hits a test vote tomorrow: dying, failed, barely breathing, and flatlined.
And obviously, it's not just Republicans. There are some Democrats who are opposed. What are their reasons?
Doesn't help either to have progressives and a border state Democrat opposing this legislation, saying it goes too far and could deny people who need asylum from getting it. Take a listen to one of them, Senator Alex Padilla of California.
What we see in this proposal on the border side is straight out of the Trump playbook of border security. We know we need to address the border condition. We know we need to update, modernize our immigration laws, and treat asylum seekers better. But the way that's being proposed is certainly not the way to do it.
And now we have Republican senators openly floating the prospect of separately passing Ukraine aid and Israel aid without the border legislation language on it. Keep in mind, for months, it was Republicans insisting they add border security legislation to any funding for Ukraine. Clearly, though, Nicole, there's an acknowledgement Ukraine money needs to move, at least through the Senate.
So is that the consensus now, maybe to break this package apart if it dies?
Among the Republicans talking about that openly is Senator John Cornyn, obviously part of Senate leadership, has some sense of the road ahead. We also asked Tim Kaine, Democrat who represents the heavy military state of Virginia, what the consequences of not promptly moving on Ukraine aid. And he said in so many words, Ukraine probably loses the war. That doesn't speak to how the U.S. House is going to respond to all this, where there are dozens of Republicans who oppose Ukraine funding in any context. But at least among senators, there's a sense that once this bill is officially gone, they may have to move nimbly to get Ukraine money and Israel money moving.
All right. Scott MacFarlane, thank you so much. Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy joins us now. He was one of the negotiators of the border bill. Senator, it's good to see you. We heard from President Biden today making some of the same arguments that you have about why it's important for Congress to consider this national security supplemental package. But do you think his argument moved the needle where you are on Capitol Hill?
Well, I think his argument plays in the American public. The American public believes that the border shouldn't be a perennial political or election issue. They want it solved. They know the border's a mess, and they want Democrats and Republicans to come together and get a deal to get the border under control. That's exactly what we did. Senator Langford, very conservative Republican, and myself got a deal to make changes at the border that will allow the president to better control the number of people who cross, so that we don't have 10,000 people crossing a day. Republicans rejected our compromise. They appointed Senator Langford to be the negotiator. We reached a deal, and Republicans have now, to a person, rejected it. Why? Because Donald Trump opposes it. Why? Because Donald Trump wants to keep chaos at the southern border because he thinks it helps him politically. So I thought President Biden made a very strong case today, but ultimately the Republican Party listens to Donald Trump. And on the border, Donald Trump wants chaos. He wants disorder. That's pretty clear. And unfortunately, it looks like we are not going to be able to get this bipartisan border deal, even on the floor of the Senate for a vote, because every single Republican has announced that they're going to stand with Donald Trump against any bipartisan border reform.
Earlier, you spoke about the border compromise on the Senate floor. Let's listen.
This is unbelievable. Like, I can't believe this is happening. We were all here. This wasn't a dream. This really happened. Republicans all stood up and said that they wanted a bipartisan bill to fix the border.
You told reporters today that you have no hope that this supplemental will advance, and even just now you seem to suggest it's not going to move forward. Have you given up?
Well, I'll never give up on trying to fix the broken border. I just wish I had partners in the Republican Party. I think the Republican Party has just become so addicted to seeing the border as a political issue to exploit. The deal we cut with Republicans was a tough one. It allowed the president to shut down parts of the border when the number of people who are crossing on a day get too high. It dramatically reformed the asylum system so that no longer can anybody come into the country and stay here for 10 years before they get their asylum claim heard. It raised the standard by which we let people into the country at the border to apply for asylum claims. It had some very good things in it for migrant protection, but it was inherently a very tough deal that got the border under control. I guess we were too effective, because I think when Republicans looked at the prospect that the border might be manageable this fall, they didn't like it because they want the border to look out of control or unruly so that it helps them in the coming election. I won't give up, but right now it feels like the Senate Republicans have made a decision to stand with Trump.
And speaking of Senate Republicans, they're also blaming, some of them are blaming GOP leadership for how they handled the negotiations. Here's what Ohio Senator J.D. Vance had to say about the process.
The idea that we committed to supporting whatever came out of this negotiation is pure, unadulterated. We supported a negotiation to bring common sense border security to this country. We did not agree to a border fig leaf to send another $61 billion to Ukraine.
So when you were working on this deal, did you get assurances from your fellow negotiator, Oklahoma Republican Senator James Lankford, that Republicans would actually support this package, or did you expect that this was going to be a heavy lift?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. Senator Vance was never on our list to support this bill. Why? Because Senator Vance actually opposes funding for Ukraine. He doesn't actually support keeping Vladimir Putin from overrunning Ukraine. He was never going to support a bill that funded Ukraine. But plenty of other Republicans would have. We weren't just negotiating with Senator Lankford. Senator McConnell's people were a big part of this negotiation. Every single day they were in the room. They were drafting big parts of this text. Senator Graham had representatives in this room. So we had multiple Republican offices that were part of this negotiation. The leadership of the Republican Party was represented. McConnell signed off on this agreement in the end, and he couldn't get a single vote for it. I mean, that's a real damning of Republican leadership because you had the Republican leader signing off on the deal. The Republican leader in the end couldn't get a single vote for a border compromise that he helped negotiate. That's not good for the country when Republican leadership in the Senate is that weak. I wish that weren't the case, but unfortunately, it was the reality here. Donald Trump runs the party. If he wants chaos at the border, he's going to get it.
I mean, despite the Republican opposition, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says that he plans to move forward anyway with this procedural vote. What does that accomplish?
Oh, well, I think you have to put people on the record. I mean, the American people want to know. Are you for a bipartisan border deal, or are you for keeping chaos at the border just because you think it helps you politically? It would be great for Republicans if they never had to take a vote on this. But the reality is, when you work as hard as we did to reach this bipartisan compromise, and remember, our group, Senator Lankford, very conservative Republican, Senator Sinema, an independent, myself, we were told by our colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, get this compromise done. We worked for 4 months every single day. We took 2 days off, Thanksgiving and Christmas. We got the bipartisan agreement. And it's important for our colleagues to show where they are, where they stand. Do you stand with a bipartisan deal to control the border, or do you stand with Donald Trump, who just wants to keep the border a mess so that he can blame it on President Biden?
All right, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.